Say thanks for having me in here. I'm actually speaking at the state volleyball convention tomorrow, so I figured, hey, why not stop by, see you guys, give a little talk if I can. So I'll keep everything I'm saying quick. I know you guys had a real hard workout. I only have a few points to make about aggressiveness, a solid foundation, and having a purpose. So first lesson, aggressiveness. How many people want the $20? If you had to pick, would you want the $20? Would you want the $20? Who wants the $20? Who wants the $20? Does anyone want the $20?
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Someone want $20? All right. So, what happened? What happened right there? What just happened? Now, how many people thought about stepping up to take it? How many people thought about it? Put your hand up. How come only one person acted on it? Okay, I want you to remember this. I know it's tough. I know you did a lot of aggressiveness already. You got a hard workout in. But K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals nothing. I'll give you another little lesson. Okay, 3 frogs are sitting on a lily pad. 2 decide to jump off. How many frogs are still on the lily pad? 3 frogs on the lily pad. 2 decide to jump off. How many frogs are still on the lily pad? 3. Why? Because deciding and taking action are 2 different things, right? How many of us know it's important to get 8 hours of sleep? All of us? I know it's important. How come I only got 6 last night? You didn't want it bad enough, right? So K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals nothing. So we talk about aggressiveness. Fortune favors the bold. Remember that, like fortune favors the bold. You have a great facility. This is awesome. I saw Coach Ryan doing a great presentation of the building. I wanted to shoot over and see it. So it's aggressiveness coming out. I saw it was awesome. I wanted to see it. So you got to be aggressive. You got to take chances. You got to go for it. That starts right here in the room. You have this great facility. You got to utilize what you have. It's very important to capitalize. Or you could have someone training in a dungeon who really wants it, and they're going to take it. All right? I can tell you one of our wrestlers, we worked the Greco team, the Olympic team, one of our guys, the 2016 Olympics, he said he was more technically prepared for any competition in his life, that competition, the Olympics, and also strength. He was stronger than he ever was before. Why did he lose? He stepped on the line and he was thinking in his head, watch the guy's headlock, watch the guy's headlock. Right? The whole time he was thinking about whose moves, his own or the other guys? The other guys. And how many times, if we're honest with ourselves, are we thinking about that? This guy's a real good counter wrestler, I can't shoot on him. We think that sometimes? Right? This guy's really good with legs. This guy's got a real good cradle. This guy's going to do this. We're thinking about the other person. Well, right there, the Olympics, right? High-level athlete, thinking too much about what the other guy's going to do. Now, it's okay to be aware of it, but you don't want to dwell on it. Be aware of it, but don't dwell on it. And actually, scouting, I've seen scouting actually probably hurt. For every one person that scouting helps, I've seen it hurt probably 20 guys. So, if it works for you, do it. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not your coach here. But if that works for you, keep doing it. But if you think it's making you overthink, I would rather you not know who you're wrestling. I mean, you're going to probably know who you're wrestling anyway, but don't focus on them. So that's step 1, aggressiveness. 2, the other thing I want to talk about is foundation, having a solid foundation. We were talking about this before, showing you about the foundation of the building and all the cement that was poured in last year for any of you that were here and remember that. Okay, so here's the question. Mathematically, and McKenna can't answer it now. How high is a pyramid? Mathematically, how high is a pyramid? Anyone?
As wide as its base.
As wide as its base. That's right. A pyramid is mathematically only as wide as its base. As high as its base is wide. And where did I learn that actually? But from Westside Barbell. Over here, Columbus, Ohio. After I speak at the volleyball convention tomorrow, Mike and I are headed over to Westside on Saturday. Well, Louis Simmons, one of the great strength coaches in the world, he said that. So you have to build a solid base. And that's something that I've really always believed. You have to look at it being the total package. Wrestling is a holistic sport, spirit, mind, and body. And it's got to be in that order. We've got to build a solid foundation. I heard Kyle talking before about it. There's going to be a Bible study after this. That's great. You should capitalize on that if you can. That's a really important thing. I would definitely say that, like when I was wrestling in college, when I was at UPenn, I was wrestling. Zeke Jones was my coach. And, you know, I definitely think I was making wrestling into more of an idol. Right? It was all about winning, and of course I want you to win, I want you to succeed, but we have to keep things in perspective. Guys who keep things in perspective wind up winning. All right? Great thing, I remember Kyle, after last year's Worlds, how he was saying that right after the match, he was proud of his aggressiveness, he was proud of the way he competed out there. Not a lot of guys can do that in those situations, right? He was still thankful for the opportunity to wrestle, even after sometimes things don't go your way. The only way you're going to have that is to do wrestling in perspective. So I always say it's spirit, mind, and body. You guys know I'm very big on mindset, obviously. Everyone says wrestling's 90% mental, right? Or 50% mental. And then we say, how much time are you training physically and mentally? Almost everyone's training like 95% physical. Do you see that? That's what we call the training paradox. If you're saying wrestling's 50% mental, you should be training 50% mental. Right? It makes sense. So be the total package. That means nutrition, that means your sleep, that means your rest and your recovery. You're doing everything at a high level, building a solid foundation. So we believe in that. Not only do we talk about mindset, my brother and I, we started a ministry called Spiritual Strength. My youngest brother, who was the best wrestler out of the three of us, actually lost to Heflin in like overtime or something at the NCAA's his senior year. Ohio State guy. He's out actually in Italy right now. He's studying to be a priest, and he actually also trains at the Olympic Training Center with Team Italy, with some of those guys. Right? So again, it's being the total package, spirit, mind, and body. So I'm putting out a new book pretty soon in the near future. I was just at the bishop's office in New Jersey, Spiritual Strength, Building the Total Athlete for Christ. We talked about what exactly that looks like and what that means. We get into that another time, but bottom line, spirit, mind, and body, and it's got to be in the right order. Don't make wrestling into an idol. Wrestling is the icing on the cake. Don't make wrestling the cake. And even if you think about it strictly from an earthly perspective, if you make wrestling the entire cake, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be scared. But if you know your values, if you know your faith, you know your identity is in Christ, and it's not in your success, you're a free man. You could wrestle without fear, because whether or not I win or lose, of course I want to win, but it doesn't define me. Make sense? Okay, so that's foundation. And then finally, the third thing I wanted to talk about was purpose. Making sure we have a purpose. Everything you're doing, you want to make sure you're doing it with a purpose. You guys were talking about hand fighting before. You were doing that. You never just put hands on someone to put hands on. It's always with a purpose. You're trying to move them a certain way, right? Everything you do, your lifting has to be wrestling specific. Your nutrition has to be wrestling specific. So I read a lot of books. One of my favorite sports books is The Secret of Soviet Sports Training, and they talk about nutrition. A marathon runner has different nutritional needs than a 100-meter sprinter. Marathon runner's running for 2 hours. 100-meter sprinter is running for 10 seconds, right? Yet how come it says that, vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C looks the same for both of those guys? No, it should look different. So make sure you're capitalizing on wrestling-specific information. That's why when we made Wrestling Mindset, my brother and myself, before we've had 80 people now around the country working with us, we wanted to make it by wrestlers for wrestlers. So very specific, very down to earth, exactly what you guys need when you need it. Like what you should be telling yourself right before you step out there and wrestle. What you should be doing your cool down. What should you be telling yourself? And that's why we always say 3 things. When I was at the Maryland Coaches Convention a few years ago, I spoke, and it's funny, Kyle spoke right after me. He was the guest speaker, and I was kind of like, the opener guy, right? And I talked about 3 things that are in your control: your effort, your attitude, and your aggressiveness. And it wasn't planned, and Kyle said the same thing. He said effort, attitude, aggressive. Or he said your attack rate, basically the same thing. That's what we're focused on. If you guys know us or followed us for any amount of time on our Instagram or anything like that, we just got over 40,000, so that was pretty cool. Nice happy thing. But nonetheless, we always talk about having the predator mindset. You guys, some of you hear me talk about that before? We talk about there's predator and there's prey. You know a predator animal because their eyes are on the front of their head. They're focused on things within their control. Prey animals, their eyes are on the side. They're focused on what's going on around them. That's why we don't want to focus on records, rankings, seedings, predictions, all that stuff. It's garbage. Of course you want to be number 1. Of course you're trying to win. But if you focus on that, you're probably going to do worse. You focus on continuing to score points. I tell athletes that all the time. I use Logan as that example all the time. He scores a lot of points, and I know there's a lot of guys also in this room doing it, but why is he getting takedowns with 3 or 2 seconds left on the clock? Because he's not looking at the clock. It's really hard to get a takedown with 2 seconds left without looking at the clock. Yet I see over and over when he was wrestling, he's putting points on the board with 5 seconds left in the period because you're not looking at the clock. I was just with Anatoly Beloglazov not long ago, him and his brother Sergey, and they talked about when they were in the practice room, they wanted them shooting 6 times in a minute. When they were drilling, 6 takedowns in a minute, full takedowns. So that's serious business. Sergey was the 8-time world champ. Anatoly was the 4-time world champ. 3 different weight classes too. Anatoly's the only guy to do that. 3 different weight classes, 3 world championships. But make sure you're being specific to your sport. And in college, Zeke was very big with that. Zeke Jones would always tell us, if he could, when he's doing his bent over rows, he wants to be in a stance. He doesn't want to be touching the bench. Why? Because it's more like being in a stance in wrestling. So I'm not telling you